Ask most people how someone gets rich from nothing and you'll hear the same three answers: salary, luck, or rich parents. Every one of those answers is wrong. People who build wealth from the bottom live on ordinary streets unnoticed. What separates them is invisible, running entirely in the mind, showing up decades before the first real dollar does. The largest survey of millionaires ever conducted looked at more than 10,000 of them, and the results shocked everyone. 79% had received no inheritance at all. Not a house, not a check, not any head start whatsoever. 8 out of 10 grew up at or below the middle of the income scale, and only 2% came from money. These are cafeteria managers and mechanical engineers and teachers who quietly crossed a line most assume is for someone else. 1 out of every 3 of those millionaires never earned 6 figures in a single working year of their lives. So if the wealth did not come from income or family money, it came from the way these people think. Today we walk through the actual mental machinery behind it. 7 psychological patterns that show up again and again. Start with the one that changes everything, because without it, none of the other 6 patterns matter at all. People who build wealth from nothing run on a different clock, thinking in decades while everyone else thinks in weeks. That single shift from the week to the decade is the entire difference between running in place and getting ahead. Let me show you why this matters. Because it is not a mindset slogan. It is simple, honest arithmetic. Imagine someone sets aside $300 a month, about $10 a day, the cost of a lunch out, at the market's long-run average of around 10% a year, kept going for 40 years. That becomes about $1.9 million. A lunch a day turned into nearly $2 million. And only 144,000 ever came from their own pocket. Now take that same person and have them wait just 10 years before they even begin the exact same plan. Same $300 a month, same 10%, but 30 years of growth instead of 40 years of growth. Instead of nearly $2 million, they finish with about $678,000. Waiting 1 decade cost over $1.2 million. That is the price the world quietly charges for hesitation. And almost nobody ever feels it happening in real time. People who build wealth from nothing have trained themselves to feel the weight of a decade like a bill due tomorrow. The second pattern is where the surface of your own life starts lying to you about what wealth looks like. We are trained to read wealth off a person's car, watch, neighborhood, and shoes. But the wealthy haven't hooked from that. Take Tessa, who drives a used sedan with over 100,000 miles and carries a phone to models old. Tessa also has more than $800,000 invested, built on an income that never once crossed $90,000. She is not depriving herself of anything she wants. She simply stopped buying things to prove something to strangers. Only 15% of the millionaires in that survey held senior executive titles. Most lived on ordinary, unremarkable streets. Consider Coretta, who taught 4th grade for more than 30 years and never earned much above $70,000. Teachers ranked 3rd among all careers, producing the most millionaires, sitting above both doctors and lawyers in that survey. She got there by living well, beneath what she earned and letting the decades quietly carry the rest of it. Most people spend money to purchase an identity. The wealth builder decided their identity simply is not for sale. When you stops depending on what you own, an entire category of spending just evaporates on its own. The third pattern might be the most valuable of all, because this is where most people lose the whole journey. Over the long run, the market averages about 10% yearly, but it almost never delivers that in any single year. During the 2008 crisis, the market fell by roughly half, and the wealthy lived through it and simply kept buying. The average investor does the opposite. Fear grabs the wheel. They sell near the bottom just to stop the pain. That one behavior, panic in the valleys and greed at the peaks, has destroyed more wealth than any crash ever has. People who build real wealth build a firewall between the news and their own hands, deciding in advance what to do. A calm mind making the plan for a future panicked one is one of the quietest superpowers in personal finance. The fourth pattern is a belief. People who build wealth believe they are the main cause of what happens to them. Luck is real and circumstances are real. Yet this belief still changes every decision that follows it regardless. In that same survey, 93% said they built wealth through hard work rather than salary or a lucky break. If you believe your future is mostly outside your control, saving feels pointless and spending today feels perfectly logical. If you believe your own choices are the main lever, every dollar becomes a decision you start making on purpose. Consider Geraldine, a maintenance worker fixing boilers and patching roofs who never earned anything close to a large salary. When she passed away, her small town learned she had quietly left behind scholarships for local kids for years to come. Nobody who knew her ever guessed the quiet fortune she had spent decades building in complete silence. She believed the boring, invisible choices she made every single week were the thing actually building her whole life. The person who believes their choices are the lever keeps pulling on it long after others give up completely. The fifth pattern is where psychology turns into design. Because willpower runs out and systems make it unnecessary entirely. Self-discipline has a real flaw nobody accounts for. It simply runs out by the end of a long day. The wealth builder sets money to move automatically the day the paycheck lands, before they ever lay eyes on it. The money was gone before temptation ever got a single vote in the matter. Every single payday. This is exactly why 8 out of 10 of these millionaires use their workplace 401k plan to build their fortune. Most people spend first and save whatever survives, which is almost always nothing, because life expands to swallow every dollar. The wealth builder reverses the sequence entirely. They save first, right off the top, and live on what remains. The 5 jobs producing the most millionaires were engineer, accountant, teacher, manager, and attorney, all deeply process-driven professions. They do not white-knuckle their way to wealth. They build a quiet machine and then step out of its way. The sixth pattern is a reframe. To most, money buys things, but to the wealth builder, money buys freedom instead. When money is for things, every raise becomes a bigger apartment and a longer list of subscriptions with no finish line. This is the trap that swallows high earners whole, no matter how large their paycheck eventually grows. Consider Diana, who earns more than $200,000 a year and is, by any honest measure, broke. Every raise Diana ever received was spent almost instantly on a lifestyle one notch above the last one she had. At 45, she has almost nothing saved, having spent her whole life playing a game with no finish line. The wealth builder's spending mostly does not rise with income, and that gap becomes the most valuable thing they own. That gap is called margin. And margin is the power to walk away from a job quietly destroying you. Margin is what actually buys freedom, turning a surprise repair into a mild annoyance instead of a catastrophe. More than half of Americans could not cover a surprise $1,000 expense from savings without reaching for debt. When the Federal Reserve asked about a surprise $400 expense in cash, more than a third said they could not. The wealth builder refuses to live on that fragile edge, keeping a cushion not from fear but for quiet confidence. Margin is the quiet knowledge that one bad week cannot end you, which leads straight into the seventh pattern. People who build wealth from nothing are not embarrassed by small beginnings that most people would honestly laugh at. They start with amounts most people would honestly laugh at, and that is exactly the whole point of it. A psychological wall stops almost everyone before they begin. What is the point of saving $50? It won't matter. So they wait until they earn more. Until the debt is gone, until some imagined future version feels ready. Every small amount refused was actually a seed. And the seeds were always the entire game being played here. Money invested at around 10% roughly doubles every 7 years. Silently, whether or not you ever believed in it. The $50 you wave off today becomes 100 in 7 years. 214, silently. The average savings account pays about a third of 1%, while the biggest banks often pay 100th of that. On $10,000. That works out to roughly $1 of interest for an entire year of your life. An online high-yield account holding the same insured dollars pays around 4%, turning that same amount into 400. Same money, same safety, 400 times the result. And the only difference is who bothered to move it. The wealth builder respects small numbers, understanding they are simply large numbers that have not grown up yet. Everyone else keeps waiting for a number big enough to feel worth the effort. and that number never quite arrives. So look back across all 7 patterns and notice what none of them actually required to get started at all. Not a big salary, not a rich family, not a lucky break, just a long clock instead of a short one. A long clock, an identity not for sale, and a steady nervous system in the middle of a storm. Belief that your choices are the lever. A system standing in for willpower, and freedom valued over things, and genuine respect for wherever your small beginning happens to be. No matter how modest it looks today, every one of those is a way of thinking, which means every single one can be learned starting today. That is the real reason so few people build wealth from nothing. Almost none of us were taught how money behaves. We were handed adult lives and quietly expected to run these 7 mental programs, never once shown they existed. The encouraging part is that these lessons can be picked up at any age you happen to be right now. Which of these 7 patterns do you already run without even realizing it? And which one hit a nerve? Tell me down in the comments which pattern you already run, and which one you've been quietly avoiding. If there was ever a single moment when the way you thought about money changed for good, tell me what it was, and what it cost you to learn it. Because that cost is often the most honest part of the story. Someone reading your comment right now is standing exactly where you used to stand before everything changed for you. Your story might be the one thing that finally gets them to start their own version of this journey.